I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, just like the man on the other mic. And boy, I do really mean he is lean. I don't know if he's so mean. He always seems nice when I have him on the show. But boy, he is lean and he keeps himself in great shape. I'm talking about none other than my friend, Dr. Ted Naiman. How you doing, Ted?
I'm doing great, Vinny. How are you?
I'm doing fine, man. Thanks. And, I was just telling you off the mic, whenever you start seeing on Twitter and places like that, hey, have you ever heard of this guy, Dr. Naiman? It's like, yeah. Yeah, no, that guy, he's been around forever. He's talking a good game. And
Thanks,
like,
man.
are you going to ever have him on? And it's like, yeah, he's been on. And then I started realizing, you know what? I need to bring the best ofs back, not just every now and then, like if I have to go on a trip or something, or a family member passes away, or anything that happens, I run a best of. But I started thinking, wait a minute, what's old is new again. We got to bring some of these guys back on. Not to mention that you guys, the one thing I love about guys like you, Ted, is the conversation. You're not a one-trick pony. As science figures things out, you're willing to change, right?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's always a good thing to have you guys back on. You are part of a group I call Doctors Without Shirts. I always make jokes about it because, and look, I get it. You guys, you got it. You're going to flaunt it. You're going to show it because it really helps other people look and go, oh my God, look at that guy. How can I be like that guy? Is that basically is that what we're doing? Is that the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I just want to be inspirational and motivational and just let people know, hey, you can actually do this without a huge investment of time or money. And if I'm not walking the walk and talking the talk, I mean, like, I'm no help to my patient if I'm like super overweight and telling them to, watch their diet or something like that. That's just not going to work. So I really am just trying to lead by example. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and look, one of my favorite guys, Trocalasian, um, he said he felt like a fraud. He was 300 some odd pounds, almost 400 pounds, and he was telling his patients, "Hey, you need to lose weight," and he just felt like such a fraud. He was like, "I know they're looking back at me, going, well, what about you, dude?" So I think it's good when you see a doctor in shape and willing to show that. As a matter of fact, people have been on me. People around me is like, you need to take your shirt off. And I'm like, why? And they said, well, because you're 60 and you can show people that they can still look like that when they're 60. So I've been considering doing that this year at some point. May throw my shirt off for a couple of photos, but I'm just not. People like what you just said maybe just convinced me in 1 second that maybe I need to do the same thing. Just to,
Yeah.
people look, you can be 60, never take a hormone, never take TRT, which is something I want to talk to you about today. Never take a SORM, never take a peptide, and never take any of it. And you're able to keep yourself lean and mean and tight. But before we get into that kind of talk, Ted, I want to go right into protein because you talk protein more than I do. When people, I see it all the time on the internet, like the bro science guys, they'll go, you got this half an hour window of opportunity to take protein after you work out. You have a hard workout. And people ask me about that. And I'm always going, no, I've never seen any science on a half an hour window after a workout. Maybe there's science. Maybe I just haven't come across it or seen it, but I'm pretty sure there isn't. I'm always touting, you need to take protein all the time. Your intestines is going to hold on to it. It's going to absorb the stuff. It's going to be in your system. The amino acids are going to be there to use. What say you on the subject?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So a lot of things happen when you eat a ton of protein. Your small intestine digestion rate goes way down, and you have this kind of slow bleed of aminos into your bloodstream. And so you're just going to kind of naturally and organically slow down the digestion when you eat a huge amount of protein. Um, so I do think that it's probably not optimal to just eat one ginormous meal a day. You know what I mean? Because there might be a period of time within your 24 hours that you don't have amino acids in your bloodstream. So I think it's a little better to have some type of eating window. And then just what I tell people is, have an eating window of some kind. Maybe it's, 12 hours, which is, kind of average. Maybe it's just 8 hours. Maybe it's somewhere in between. But you want to bookend that thing with protein. You know what I mean? Like, you want to, at least 40 or 50 grams of protein at that first meal, 40, 50 grams at the last meal, bookend that feeding window, and then you're pretty much good. Like, you eat a big old chunk of protein at the bookends of the feeding window and you're set. Like, you're going to have enough aminos that you really don't have to sweat. Like, oh, did I chug a whey shake within 30 minutes of working out? You're just going to have plenty of area under the curve with aminos in your bloodstream, not only for muscle protein synthesis and building new muscle, but also for satiety, so you're not starving and snacking all the time, but also for preventing muscle protein breakdown, which, let's face it, is almost more important when you're like super old like me, because I just turned 51. So it's like all about, just bookending the eating window with a big piece of protein, and then you're pretty much set. I do think 1 meal a day is probably not optimal, and I typically recommend like a 16-8 or something around there.
I like that you said that because I've never liked it became OMAD, 1 meal a day. And people say, well, what do you think about OMAD? It's like, well, I've seen people get away with it. I've seen people do well with it. The biggest problem I've always had with it is you're right. You're just getting 1 meal to circulate all the protein, all the fat, all the whatever you're taking in. But you can also, people get into diet trickery, right? Oh, wait, I'm losing weight on 1 meal a day. I can keep doing this crap and keep losing weight. And they could end up in diet trickery, which I'm always concerned about. Go back to what you were saying, if you don't mind, Ted, when you were talking about a big chunk of protein bookending on both ends, meaning breakfast and dinner. What are we talking about? People always want to know specifics. He said a big chunk of protein. What is that? Is that a 20-ounce steak? Is 2 eggs enough? Should I have 3 eggs, 5 eggs? What's he talking about? Can you give us an example, maybe 2 or 3 examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So like bare minimum for me would be 40 grams of protein with the first and last meals of your day. It's easy at dinner. Everyone's nailing protein at dinner. You eat a chicken breast, that might be 40 grams of protein right there. You eat a fair sized steak, that's probably 40 grams right there. So a lot of people are getting that with dinner. But in America, studies show that the protein at dinner is just about okay, adequate. Lunch, way too small. Breakfast is a joke. It's a crime. It's terrible. It's hideous. It's like a nightmare. And so the protein intake in breakfast in America is so low and so criminally horrible that any study you look at where they made people eat more protein at breakfast, boom, they just automatically lose weight, no matter what else changes. It's because you're just so much fuller all day long. And so for me, it's like, okay, figure out, I don't care if you don't eat breakfast, if you don't eat till noon, if you're doing intermittent fasting, if you have an 8-hour window, whatever the hell the first meal of your day is. And I literally don't care if you work days, nights, it's in the mornings, in the afternoon, whatever. First meal you eat, 40 grams of protein, absolute minimum. And a lot of women are like, okay, I had an egg, I had a hard-boiled egg, that's protein. I'm like, that's 6 grams of protein, and I want you to have 40. So now what? It's like, okay, yeah, that's not going to do it. Cottage cheese, a low carb, low fat Greek yogurt, amazing. Whey shake, fine. Anything. Like, I just don't even care. Egg white scramble. You just throw more protein at it. And I think that is going to make most people lose weight or lose fat effortlessly. And there's a lot of studies that really support this. Getting protein in the first meal of your day is a huge big deal. And that's one of the biggest places where people are screwing up. So yeah, that's my advice. 40 grams of protein, figure it out. Look at what you're eating. Just count up the grams of protein. And the idea is to get that protein before you get a crap ton of carbs and fats. Like, you could get 40 grams of protein from glazed donuts, but you're going to eat, 6,000 calories of carbs and fat, which you really don't want. So
Right.
you're just looking for mostly protein, and that's important.
Yeah, it's the argument I make about oatmeal. People go, well, it's got 4 grams of protein per cup of oatmeal. It's like, well, okay. So in order to get enough protein, you would have to eat 10 cups of oatmeal
Right.
And, 10 cups of, so each cup has 28 grams of carbohydrates. So you'll be eating 2,800 grams of carbohydrates, which is enough for a month. I don't think I've had that in the past month.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything against oatmeal as a carb source. So like, it has a lot of soluble fiber and pretty good satiety, and it's just really slow digesting, low glycemic carb. But like, people who are doing it right are having some oatmeal and then a whole bunch of protein. Like you look at like that Athlean X dude, I don't remember what his name is or whatever, but he's eating oatmeal every morning for breakfast as a side to a giant bowl of just egg whites. He eats like this absurd amount of egg whites. He just pours egg whites in a bowl and microwaves it like a machine and eats like 60 or 70 grams of protein from just this congealed bowl of egg whites. And then he eats his oatmeal. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can get behind that. That is actually legitimate. That's totally fine.
Where are you? You mentioned whey protein. I always tell people there's there are three types of whey. You have just standard whey protein. It's got everything in it. There's a lot of protein, but there's some carbs in there and everything else. And then you can get the isolate where they cook it down even more and you have the isolate. But now you have a more cooked down product. And of course, there's the first cousin to whey, which is casein. Um, any difference for you in those three and taking those?
Yeah, I mean, I really like a whey casein blend if I'm baking or cooking with it. I have all these crazy recipes that are like high protein, low whatever, and a whey casein blend seems to do the very best for me for making, pancakes and waffles and all these crazy. I make all sorts of stuff from that, and so definitely I like the whey casein blend for that. I like just the plain whey concentrate for just drinking with water. It usually has the best flavor. But if you're really just counting macros, I like the isolate, and I'll use something like isopure or something if I'm really just trying to get protein. So I see a use case for all three. Although honestly, the differences between those is like a 1% thing. So you only worry about that once everything else is dialed in, like the whole rest of your diet and your exercise. And that's like a pretty minor detail.
Yeah, I'm always telling people, look, at the end of the day, whey protein, any kind of protein is, a bastardized food. You should try to get it from food first. And there's a reason they call it a supplement. It's meant to supplement what you're already doing. So I'm always yelling, hey, eat eggs first, eat meat first, eat chicken first, and then worry about getting if you want to do whey protein or anything else on top
Yeah,
of
for me,
help
it's
yourself
just
out.
a convenience thing for people who don't have time or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, the stuff we're getting from whey protein mostly, it's got the most out of all the proteins, I guess, mm, even more than egg white protein is amino acids. We get the branch chain, the EAAs and the BCAAs from that. Is there any world where people should just take the BCAAs and stay away from just taking a whey protein?
Basically, no. So, BCAAs, while they do stimulate muscle protein synthesis because you've got leucine there, it's still not a complete protein. So you can't really build muscle or any kind of lean tissue out of it as readily as you can a whole protein. So it's kind of pointless. The only reason you'd add BCAAs in is if you were eating like some really inferior proteins with a really bad spectrum of aminos that just wasn't quite as good as whey or egg. So if you're looking at whey or egg, which are these gold standards, they're awesome. They have all the BCAAs you'd need, and it's complete protein for building whatever you need to make out of it. But let's say you're like just a super vegan or whatever, and all you get is these proteins that have a slightly suboptimal amino acid spectrum with maybe lower BCAAs. I could possibly see an edge case scenario for a vegan bodybuilder taking BCAAs on top of their like vegan proteins. That might not be terrible, but that's kind of fringe and kind of edge, and it's like turning something that's suboptimal into more, into something better. So for most people, BCAA is total waste. Not better than a whole complete protein like whey or egg, and more expensive.
Since we're talking about vegans, I deal with a lot of vegans that, when I do consults and they'll say, listen, I know you don't like vegans. And it's like, well, no, I don't dislike vegans. I just don't like some of the vegan doctors that are lying to people. They know they're lying because they're doctors and they were taught better. Um, I'm not crazy about those guys that are lying to you, but I will never try to talk anyone when they call me on a consult. I'll never try to talk them out of their vegan diet. The only thing I try to do is help them become the best vegan they can become. And the best protein I've seen for that, meaning, a protein in a bottle, is pea protein. But I'm always saying to them, look, you're not getting the same profile that you might get from a milk protein or an egg protein or something like that. What say you? Is it even close, or is it just bastardized to no end?
Um, so it's clearly inferior in terms of the spectrum of aminos that you need to build an animal instead of a plant. However, you can overdrive the quantity and it ends up being basically as good. So if you eat maybe 25 to 30% more soy or pea or legume powder than you would egg or whey, you're pretty much going to be fine. You're going to get all the same benefits out of it. And since it's just protein, it doesn't really matter if you're getting some extra calories in there. You're really not going to have, you're just not going to convert it into fat. It's not going to be a big deal. So I'm just telling people, hey, when you're using these vegan plant-based protein powders, just up the quantity, just multiply everything by like a 1.25x or a 1.3x, and you throw in an extra 25 or 30%, and you're pretty much fine. I mean, you're gonna, it's you can get by. That's like it's actually no different, to be honest. If they look at studies, and we have some studies now looking at plant and animal proteins like this, and as long as you get the quantities of the BCAAs the same by maybe adding more of the plant protein, they're just as good.
Someone sent me an article about, it was well over a year ago. I know that. And I've been hanging on to this. And since then, a few people have asked me about this. And I really don't. And I've looked it up. I've checked into WebMD. I've looked around, at different things to see who's saying what about it. But apparently, there was a small study done where they gave older people, people my age, 60-year-olds, HMB. And I can't remember what HMB stands for, but it's a precursor, or it's an amino acid or a precursor to leucine or something, if I'm remembering right. It's been a while. And it was supposed to help these people hang on to muscle, maybe slow down the effects of sarcopenia. Do you know anything about it? Can you talk about it to any length?
Yeah, I mean, hydroxymethylbutyrate, HMB, it's basically what your body makes when it breaks down leucine. And I don't know. I mean, there's some studies showing that it might promote muscle growth. I haven't done a lot of research to really know if it's good or bad. Since it's related to protein, I'm gonna like it no matter what.
Yeah.
But since it's related to protein and it's a breakdown product of leucine, my thought is just eat a bunch of protein and then you don't have to worry about like an HMB supplement. But there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's okay. I think it's probably good. It's kind of like creatine. For me, I would mentally put it in with creatine. It's like if you're a vegan and you're probably not getting enough in your diet, yeah, take a creatine supplement, take an HMB supplement, take both of those. But if you're eating a bunch of meat and you're getting some really a lot of protein, high quality protein, I don't think you necessarily need to supplement with creatine or HMB just because you're getting so much from your diet. It's gonna be like a really minimal return on your investment for adding on top of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about creatine. I'm glad you brought it up. It was coming up in a few minutes, but here we are. Um, People ask me about creatine all the time, and it's like, well, look, if you're eating meat, you're getting it, and your body makes it. So my feeling, and you can tell me because you're a doctor, is if you're taking too much of it, it's gonna down regulate the amount that your body would naturally make on its own. What say you?
Um, I'm not really sure if that happens or not. I've never seen any evidence that um, if you're taking creatine, you're down regulating anything in particular. In fact, most of the studies show that pretty much anybody who adds in creatine is going to have some sort of like benefit. It might be super tiny. You get maybe more muscle sarcoplasm, and you might gain a couple pounds of water weight and have a little bit more benefit out of like sort of resistance training exercises. So I think there's like some teensy tiny little benefits there. But yeah, I don't know about any of this downregulation, or I can't think of a scenario in which it would necessarily be bad. I could definitely think of scenarios where it's not that helpful, especially if you're just getting enough from your diet, from mostly from eating meat.
Yeah. Um, any supplement we're missing, something that we can get from food or otherwise that people should be taking to hang on to lean body mass?
No, not really. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't take any supplements. I rarely recommend supplements. I know that, I mean, it's probably, there are plenty of people out there who just don't get enough of, minerals in their diet. Like, 98% of Americans don't get enough potassium in their diet. It's just criminally horrible. And so it's probably okay for anyone to take a multivitamin as just like an insurance policy, just because the processed food that we're eating is so nutritionally empty. So I don't have a problem with vitamins. I think they're okay, but it's rare that I'm like, wow, you need to just, add a vitamin to your awesome diet. You know what I mean? Because I just feel like most people can get that from their diet. I'm not really taking a lot of supplements, even creatine. So creatine definitely gives you a little bit of a strength boost, but you also gain a few pounds of water weight at the same time. And so, to be perfectly honest, a lot of calisthenics athletes don't use creatine because while you do get stronger, you also weigh more at the same time, and your relative strength goes up. I'm sorry, your absolute strength goes up, but your relative strength related to your body weight might not go up. It might stay the same or even go down a tiny bit. So it's just not that beneficial if you're looking at, your relative strength to your body weight necessarily. So I don't even take creatine, to be honest. I'm just not taking anything.
Yeah, I guess the reason I've never taken it was, I was into cycling for a long time, the ultra cycling, and they showed this was back in the 90s when everybody was, looking into creatine and all the studies were being done. And one of the things they knew was you'll hang on to water weight. Now, folks, we're talking about super lean athletes where they're so thin you can see the mitochondria swimming under their skin type of athletes. And the last thing they want to do is hang on to 5 pounds of water weight, because the strength gains you might get to go up a mountain faster on a bike or running or hiking, you're going to lose to the 5 pounds you're carrying in water. And sometimes it's not 5 pounds, it's 7 or 10 pounds. So I agree with what you said with the calisthenic athletes. Why have the extra weight when the extra strength won't outweigh the extra weight?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And people just never think that. It's like, I just got to get that number. They look at the wrong metric so often. Drives me.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
I want to get into, we're going to take a quick break here. I have to do an ad, but I want to get into strength training, sarcopenia with older people, and that sort of thing. But before we do that, something I'm sure the good doctor will agree with 100% is Villa Capelli olive oil, the longest running sponsor of this show. Villa Capelli, it's back in stock right now. Go get it. I get a lot of complaints. Hey, they're out of stock. They're out of stock. Yes, because this show runs that company out of stock in the United States. They don't put seed oils. They don't mix in 40% seed oils with their olive oil. It's 100% pure. You know what that means? You have to wait until the tree makes more olives. So get the stuff when it's available. Do what I do. Buy a few liters and just have you. I got right now 2.5 3-liter tins sitting in my house because I don't want them to run out. I'm so impressed with this company. At my company, purevitaminclub.com, we use their olive oil to mix with our D3. We don't use seed oils in that D3. We use Villa Capelli olive oil. That's how much I believe in this company. They're that good. Go check them out. You want to save 10%, put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, 10% off every single time. It's not a one-time offer, it's every single time. If after the promo code you have spent 1 penny over $125, they'll give you free shipping. So if you do the math, if you spend about $140, get the 10% off. You're still above 125. Bada bing, bada boom. Promo code Vinnie, Vinnie, Villa Capelli olive oil. We're talking to Dr. Ted Naiman. Ted, the last time we talked, you were doing pull-ups like a madman. Are you still doing them? How many can you do? Talk about your pull-ups, and that's going to lead us into talking about health and fitness.
Oh yeah, no thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Still doing just a ton of body weight exercise. I'm a huge fan. Although, I have evolved a little bit. I realized, okay, weights are awesome. Body weight's awesome. What's really awesome, like extra awesome, is weighted body weight exercise. So weighted calisthenics. So I've kind of gotten into doing just some basic calisthenics weighted. So weighted dips, weighted chins, weighted squats. And I found that it's a little bit faster for me because I was having to progress doing one arm or one limb at a time, like one arm chins, one arm push-ups, single leg squats. Now I put a dip belt on, throw on some plates, and I can do both at the same time. And it's easier to progressively overload. So now I'm doing a lot of weighted calisthenics. And like, to be honest, I look back at my resistance training, career or whatever, if you want to call it that. I didn't even start till I was like 30 something. I mean, I really got into the resistance training game super late. But if I look back, I could probably replace my entire training career with just weighted dips, weighted chins, and weighted squats and get to exactly where I'm at now in like 3 years. And
Yeah.
so I spent a lot of time just like not knowing what I was doing or wasting a lot of time or just not getting it or whatever. So if I had to do it over with, I'd just do a really hard to failure single set daily of weighted dips, chins, and squats and do that for a couple of years and probably pull down 80% of my, potential natural muscle gains in a couple of years.
Yeah. I bring people on like Fred Hahn. He's been a big proponent. Fred's about my age. He's been in the game as long as I have. He's up in New York. Fred has been, ever since the super slow thing came around in the 90s, Fred has been part of that. Ben Bocchicchio down in Florida, same thing. One set to failure, super slow, not even having to use a lot of weight, just moving slowly. And, guys like you and Jerry Teixeira and you guys that just do the body weight stuff. Are you doing one set to failure or are you doing a couple of sets per everything to failure? How are you doing it?
So what I'll usually do is do one set to failure, but it's kind of a triple failure and it's kind of a rest pause technique. So I'll do a set all the way to failure, wait like 20, 30 seconds, do another like a rest pause, like a myo rep. So I'm, go to failure, rest 20, 30 seconds, do it again. Maybe I'm getting less than, 40% of the reps. Wait another 20 seconds, do one more. And then on the final one, I'm going to concentric failure, holding it isometrically for as long as I can, and then doing a super slow eccentric negative as slow as I can, and then I'm done. So it really is just one set, but it's almost like a cluster set or a myo rep or a I'm really just trying to crush the failure on that one little set. And of course, people worry that, oh, if you go to failure, you're just going to be so fatigued, you can't exercise. You're just going to wreck yourself and can't exercise again. But the volume is so low. I can do one set of this extreme failure, triple failure, myo rep, whatever thing in like, 90 seconds, under 2 minutes. It's pretty, I'm picking a rep, initial weight that I'm going to fail in like a 8 to 10 rep range, around 10. And then I'm just myo repping it, doing a triple failure, and the whole thing's over with in less than 2 minutes. So I'm like, come on, are you telling me I really can't do 2 minutes of pushing every day without like just wrecking myself and having no recovery and being overtrained? Yeah, that's a joke. Like, so I'm just doing a very high intensity, very low volume. And that for me solves the equation of getting it done in the very least amount of time because I just feel like I never have enough time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my strategy right there.
You mentioned, and you just kind of blew past it, but I want to go back and, and we're going to explain, we're going to hand feed it to the audience. On that third or fourth set, you talked about going to concentric failure and then eccentric failure. So if you're doing a pull-up, concentric is when you're pulling it down. So
Right.
let's say you can't get your chin above the bar again, right? You're
Right.
halfway, you're stuck,
Hmm.
you hold it. Do,
Yep.
do you use your feet to lift you above the bar now to do the eccentric to failure, or how do you do that?
I'll just hold. So let's say I get to here and I hit failure. I'll hold it isometrically for as long as I can. And then when I can't hold it anymore, I'm just doing a slow eccentric, whether I want to or not. And then I just keep that eccentric as slow as I can all the way till I, finish the rep. And so it's basically failing on concentric, then holding isometric to failure, and then failing on eccentric. And then
So,
I'm like done.
all right. So no matter where you fail in that rep, you just stop right there and then start failing in the opposite direction.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay. Um, you mentioned every day. You're doing same muscle groups every day?
Yeah. I mean, I just do one set of push and pull and legs. And so this is, it's 10 minutes. I mean, the volume is so low. The number of overall sets is so low. The volume so low that it's just really not that bad at all. I mean, it's no kind of overtraining. Now, to be totally honest, could I just do it 3 times a week, like every other day and get the exact same gains? Probably. It's probably that I could do it every other day. And so what I do is I aim for every day, and then if I miss a day because I'm too busy or something comes up, I just don't care. I literally don't care. I don't feel bad about it. I'm like, oh, every other day is probably just as good. So, what I don't want to do, what I really don't want to do, and what just irks me to death is like I trained yesterday and I have time to train today, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it because I could be overtrained. So I'll just sit around and watch TV and then I'll do it again tomorrow. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So as long as I feel good and I have the time, I'm going to do at least one set. Why not?
Yeah, if you go back to the old Arthur Jones days, he was talking about taking them to failure twice a week, not even doing it every other day, just twice a week. And people like Mike Mentzer, famous bodybuilder, trained that way. Dorian Yates, these guys famously never spent more than 2 hours a week in the gym. I think,
Hmm.
and I think Mike Mentzer says 2 hours a week he was in the gym. As you know, most bodybuilders spend 3 hours a day. Dorian Yates, I'm told, was even less than that. Um, so yeah, people have done a lot less and have gotten really far by doing it that way. So it is interesting to know that some people do it every day. I was talking to Robert Sykes the other day, and he said, he's trying a split routine where he's doing, every day, same exercise in many cases, similar to what you're doing. And he says it's working for him, right? I've never been able to do it. Every time I've tried that when I was young and able to do that kind of thing, I ended up with tendonitis somewhere, so
Hmm.
who knows how and why it works for some and not for others, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of good things about the higher frequency. First of all, if you're doing it more frequently, you get better practice at the movement pattern. So like if I just did, you know, 1,000 hours of training once a year, and then I went like 364 days without doing it, I get really rusty at it. You know what I mean? So if you're doing a little bit every day, you get lots of practice with the neuromuscular connection, a lot of practice with the mind muscle connection. You get a lot of just regular activity in general, and so you have a higher level of readiness. You get more practice. And I think as long as your volume's really small, you're just not going to necessarily overdo it. I do see people getting tendonitis if they're doing like too much of anything. So that, that's something you kind of want to work up to. And usually you just start with easier exercises and just kind of progress from there. But yeah, I mean, I like the high frequency. I like the full body workouts. There's a lot of good things about that. I know it's not like classic bro split, each body part twice a week or whatever, but
Yeah.
works for me.
No, and look, I'm not doubting it. You're doing well with it. You do 3 exercises. You mentioned dips, pull-ups, and compound movement on your legs, the squats. Any push-ups at all?
Oh yeah, I do push-ups. Yep. Absolutely. Mhm.
Um, with all of it, all right, so you're pushing and you're pulling in every direction, except you're not pulling towards your body. Do you do any rowing style exercise?
Uh,
Anything?
yeah, I do. I can do rows on a pull-up bar, just like inverted rows.
Yeah.
Um, And lately, really just this year, I did start doing some deadlifting. So I've thrown that in my routine just because I feel like I'm not getting enough hamstring, I'm not getting enough um, hip hinge, and so I I'm mostly doing like handstand push-ups or overhead press, pull-ups, dips, push-ups, some body weight rows, some deadlifts, and then like weighted dip belt squat basically now. Formerly like a pistol squats, just body weight on each leg at a time, but now I just weight it up and do both legs together, and it's faster.
And do you do them all every day, or you split? You're doing these one day, some, are you mixing them up?
I'm doing them all every day. So I
Oh, wow.
usually do about 8 exercises every day. One set triple failure, I can do that in about a minute and a half per exercise. And so it takes me about 15 minutes to do a full body workout. And yeah, I'm never doing resistance training more than like 15 minutes.
I've always been, people have always, growing up, I was doing all the modeling and stuff in LA. And people would say to me, "You must just do abs around the clock every day." And the photographers that you're shooting with, and I would always say to them, "No, twice a week." And I swear to you, I never do more than 3 sets. It's always something different every time. 3 sets to failure, and that's all you need to do. Obviously, you're doing some ab work because you have pretty incredible abs.
Yeah, I'm not doing a ton of ab work. I don't do a ton of direct ab work. I do maybe a couple sets of leg lifts a week, a couple of hollow body holds a week, and that's about it. I think it's mostly just being thin enough, honestly.
Yeah, lean from your diet. As we always say, folks, you don't make abs in the gym, you make them in the kitchen. Um, Sarcopenia. A lot of people listen to this podcast, they're my age. Sarcopenia starts in your 30s. You start hitting 55, 60, 65. You're now seeing it in a large way. Um, some doctors, people tell me all the time, my doctor told me there's nothing I can do about it. This is just it. My body's rusting. I'm getting old. This is what's happening. I look at you. I look at me. I look at Sean Baker. I look at older guys. I'm sure there's some sarcopenia going on. As a matter of fact, I know there is with me. Um, but it doesn't look like other people. We still look fit. I look fit. Sean is very fit. And I can go on and on and on. What say you about sarcopenia and lessening the results of it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to lose lean mass as you get older, muscle and bone. It's just going to happen. But you can really slow the rate of decline if you're eating a ton of protein to inhibit muscle protein breakdown, if you're doing a ton of resistance training to just hang on to all the bone and muscle that you can. So if you're basically doing resistance training and protein, your curve, like your decline is going to be way less steep. Also, if you build up a bunch of muscle and bone earlier in your life, you can coast for a lot longer. So these people who never worked out, who the peak of muscle and bone for them was not that great, and then who are not prioritizing protein or working out, it's just falling off a cliff. And so I see so many fragility fractures at work. I mean, people just fall from a standing height, break their wrist, shatter their wrist, break their leg, break their hip. Just tons of problems afterwards because they weren't strong to begin with. And then when you try to rehab from that, you're really in trouble. And every time you have something like this happen to you, you take a big stair step down in terms of your function and how much muscle you have. And you do a couple of those, and then you're just gonna die pretty much. It's crazy. Like if you're over the age of 65 and you break your hip, your all cause mortality the next 2 years is 40%. So you're pretty much just gonna die. And this is a major cause of death, to be honest, in older persons. So it's a huge problem. It's a total disaster. And that's just like if you break something, but even before that happens, your quality of life is a lot lower if you don't have enough muscle. You just can't do as much stuff, you're kind of limited. So it's really not good.
Yeah, it's funny. I was at a party, Cinco de Mayo. The neighbors invited us to a party, and my wife and I didn't know anyone there. And as it turns out, everyone else at the party knew each other from pickleball. Apparently, pickleball has taken a nation by storm. I've not picked up a pickleball racket yet. I'm not planning on it. I was happy to know that people my age are actually moving around. You know, it's a weight bearing exercise. I don't know how it really works. I've never seen the game played. I'm told there's a bastardized form of tennis, but everyone seems to be doing it. So there are ways that people can get out there and get started just by doing weight bearing exercise. I tell people all the time, you haven't exercised in your life. How about you start with walking and see if you can get walking up to an hour a day? And they'll go, an hour a day. It's like, listen, that's the beginning. You're getting to an hour a day. We just have to get some bone. We need to get some soft tissue moving. We need to get some stuff building up here before you do anything else. I know it sounds wimpy, but you haven't done anything. And I notice when people say to me, they'll go, what did you do last week? Oh, I went skiing, or I went water skiing, or I went kayaking or hiking, or I climbed a peak, and they'll go, how do you do that stuff? It's like, well, because I never stopped. But you can't start where I am. You need to start where you are. What say you?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, you just got to get people in the door with whatever. And if somebody's really overweight and out of shape, it's basically walking. And I tell people, look, just devote this block of time, figure out how much you could realistically commit to walking every day. And just, maybe that's 15 minutes, maybe it's half an hour, maybe you can't commit to an hour, maybe you search your soul and you're like, okay, I could do 20 minutes and that's it. You just give yourself this block of time and just make yourself do it. And after you've done it like a couple dozen times, it's a habit. And then what you do is you progressively overload it, just like adding weight to the bar. You crank the incline up on the treadmill, you go crank the speed up a little. And you just try to make each time you work out a little higher wattage and a little more difficult. So you're a little more short of breath and you're sweating a little more, and you just progressively overload that. And you get to the point where, in 20 minutes, you're burning 500 calories and you're at a 12% grade and you're running 6 miles an hour and you're just like really burning a ton of fat. And so for a lot of my patients, it's about, I don't have time to work out. Okay, you find some tiny little thing, you just start doing it, turn it into habit, and then progressively overload it. Now, the pickleball is great because if you can find something you actually like to do, I mean, that's such a huge win. I mean, you're just going to do it, and that's really beautiful. But if you if you don't have anything like that, you got to just start with walking. It's a really good starting point. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I talk about these. I'm the youngest guy in the group, but I talk about these guys I shoot skeet with in the morning. They go every morning, 5 days a week. I can usually make it out there 2 or 3 mornings because my day starts much later. I'm the only non-retired guy there. They're all in their 70s. And I marvel at their eye-hand coordination still at their age. The fact that they'll be out there on a 30-degree day and a 95-degree day, right? They're able to do that. And several of these guys, when they're done doing that, they talk about, oh, I'm going home to cut grass, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. A couple of them play golf after they do ski. They have the life, these guys. They'll go play golf. Some of them go straight to their tennis lesson. It's not like they're going home and they're done for the rest of the day, because skeet is basically standing around shooting a gun, right? But you're standing for about, 90 minutes to 2 hours. So that's something. But then they go play golf, or they go do yard work, or they go do something else, which it's absolutely keeping these guys young. And I don't think most people get how important that is. I know a lot of people back from my hometown. I'm from Louisiana. When I'll talk to my parents and their friends, it's like, hey, what did you guys do last weekend? Oh, we went gambling. You're sitting all day. And it's like, yeah, but we get to socialize. It's like, can you go for a walk and socialize? Can you do something? Because sitting is not helping you. You have to be standing. You need to be weight bearing at some point. Right. And I'm lucky that my parents do. They're old, but they walk up and down the driveway and they walk around the block. They do something. Right. But most of their friends are just sitting and they're dying.
Yeah.
Another one
Wow.
died today. It's sad. It's sad.
That is sad. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Anything that gets you moving, is even halfway active, that gets you outside, these are all so much better than just sitting. It's yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Before I let you go, Ted, what are we missing? Anything we should know?
Oh boy, I don't think so. I mean, I'm just like super geeked out on the diet side. I've been working with Diet Doctor doing this satiety stuff, which is pretty interesting. It's just kind of an evolution of the whole PE diet thing.
Yeah.
And that's about it. Yeah, I'm just living the dream as a primary care doctor and just trying to inspire people to work on diet and exercise with just some basics.
Yeah, I had Andreas Eenfeldt on just a couple of weeks ago again. He's one of my favorites. And he was in my first movie, Fat, a documentary. Love that guy. And he was talking about that too. If we could just deal with the satiety thing and just get people to where they're not eating around the clock. And I'm glad that you guys, you're doing the Lord's work over there. So keep doing what you guys are doing. So people can find you at dietdoctor.com. Go check it out. You can find Dr. Ted Naiman. You're also on Twitter and Instagram.
Yep, yeah, Ted Naiman. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ted Naiman, Twitter, Instagram. Go check out everything he's doing there, folks. If you want to know what I'm up to, just go to vinnietortorich.com. Before you go to Amazon, go to vinnietortorich.com. Click through the banner. It puts a little coal on the fire, gets my train down the track, able to keep this show free and keep everyone employed around here. And that's always a good thing. We also have the ebook, the NSNG ebook, the No Sugars, No Grains ebook. Everyone seems to love that thing. Go check it out. I think I've done everything I needed to do. All right. Oh, also sign up for my newsletter because I have some big news coming out. We're going to have a big sale on the ultra fat coming up. Everyone's loving the ultra fat. If I can explain to you guys how big that company has grown so fast, that I'm trying to give back. I want to give you guys a nice summer sale, and I'll probably mention it on the podcast, but go sign up for my email list at vinnietortorich.com. I'll be sending something out. It might even come out before this podcast, but if not, go check that out. On behalf of Dr. Ted Naiman, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.